You don't find this road by accident. You find it because you're already lost. One wrong turn, one missed exit, and suddenly the world you knew is gone, replaced by a stretch of asphalt that doesn't appear on any map and doesn't allow you to leave. The road doesn't kill you quickly. It strips you slowly, mile by mile, of your memories, your identity, and your humanity. And once you realize what it's doing, it's already too late to turn back.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. This road does not appear on any map. The highway appeared without warning. One moment, the car was gliding along a familiar stretch of rural blacktop, cracked lines, leaning telephone poles, trees pressed close like silent witnesses. The next, the road felt wrong. Not broken, not damaged, just unfamiliar in a way that made the skin tighten. The GPS chirped once, then fell silent. The screen blinked, recalculated, blinked again. No signal, it finally said, in a calm, synthetic voice that felt deeply inappropriate for the growing unease in the car. Daniel slowed without realizing he'd touched the brake. The speedometer dipped. The engine hummed obediently. Everything worked exactly as it should, which somehow made it worse. Ahead, the road stretched straight and narrow, swallowed by fog that clung low to the asphalt. No road signs, no mile markers, no reflective paint catching the headlights, just pavement and darkness, as if the world beyond the beams had been erased. In the passenger seat, Mara shifted. She hadn't said anything since the turn. She finally murmured, "That wasn't on the map." Daniel nodded, though his eyes never left the road. Probably a detour, construction or something. He didn't believe it, not really. The last sign they'd passed, he was sure of it, had pointed them toward a town he recognized, or thought he did. Now, when he tried to recall the name, his mind slipped, like reaching for a word that dissolved the moment he got close. Mara noticed the pause. What was the town called? Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. I don't know. Silence filled the car again, heavier this time, the kind that pressed against the ears. The fog thickened as they drove. It didn't roll or shift like normal mist. It simply existed, dense, uniform, unmoving. The headlights cut a narrow tunnel through it, revealing only a few dozen feet of road at a time. No intersections, no driveways, no signs of life. If you can't name where you are, you're already lost, Mara said quietly. Daniel glanced. What? She frowned, as if surprised by her own words. I don't know, it just came to me. The road dipped slightly, then leveled out. The tires hummed in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Daniel realized his shoulders were tight, his jaw clenched so hard it ached. He reached for the radio. Static. He turned the dial. AM, FM, satellite. Nothing but a low hiss, like distant breathing. He shut it off quickly. They drove for what felt like 15 minutes. Then Mara said, "Didn't we already pass that tree?" Daniel's stomach dropped. On the right side of the road stood a dead oak split down the middle by lightning. One half leaned inward, skeletal branches clawing at the fog. He was sure they'd passed it before. "That's not possible," he said, too fast. But even as he spoke, another shape emerged ahead, an abandoned sedan, rusted and half sunk into the shoulder, its windows opaque with grime. They passed it in silence. 5 minutes later, they passed it again. The sedan was identical, same dented hood, same shattered taillight, same faint smear on the driver's side door that looked disturbingly like a handprint. Mara hugged herself. Daniel. He pressed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed. 40, 55, 65. The road didn't change. The fog didn't thin. The car felt like it was working harder, the engine's pitch rising, but the scenery crawled past at the same slow pace, as if the road itself were resisting them. Daniel slammed the brakes. The car screeched, fishtailed slightly, then stopped dead in the middle of the lane. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I'm turning around," Daniel said. He shifted into reverse. The backup camera flickered on and showed only fog, not the road behind them, not the oak tree, just a blank gray void stretching endlessly. Mara leaned forward. "That's not right." Daniel tried to turn the wheel. It resisted, not locked, just heavy, like steering through wet cement. He forced it, muscles straining, until the wheel finally jerked left. He shifted into drive and attempted a 3-point turn. The car lurched, the tires squealed. When they straightened out, the headlights illuminated the same stretch of road they'd been facing before. Forward, always forward. Mara's breathing had quickened. "It's not letting us turn." Daniel swallowed. His mouth felt dry, cottony. "We'll find an exit. A road has to lead somewhere." "Does it?" she whispered. They drove on. Hours passed, although outside the night stayed exactly the same. No stars, no moon, just fog and asphalt and the steady hum of tires. Eventually, Daniel noticed something else. The road wasn't just empty, it was expectant, as if it had been waiting for them. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet, terrible thought began to take shape, one he tried desperately to ignore. This road did not appear on any map, because it wasn't meant to be found. It was meant to be entered, and once you were on it, the road would decide what you were allowed to keep. Behind them, the fog closed in, seamless, complete, erasing any proof they had ever come from anywhere else at all.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Everyone thinks they took a wrong turn. At first, no one panicked. That was the strange part. Daniel laughed, a short, brittle sound that startled even him. Okay, that's annoying, but not impossible. He tapped the GPS again, as if irritation might coax it back to life. Rural dead zone. We'll hit a main road eventually. Mara nodded, too quickly. Yeah, happens all the time. They clung to the lie because it was familiar, because it was safe. The road rewarded them for it. A mile marker emerged from the fog, 17, rusted, crooked, but real enough to touch. Daniel felt a wave of relief so strong it made him dizzy. "See?" he said. "We're moving." The car rolled past the marker. The fog thinned slightly. The trees pulled back from the shoulder, giving the illusion of space, of progress. For a moment, even the road seemed ordinary. Cracked asphalt, scattered leaves, the faint smell of wet earth seeping through the vents. Mara exhaled. "I told you, temporary." The road let them believe that. They drove on, tension loosening its grip. Daniel told a joke about horror movies, how characters always made the dumbest choices. Mara smiled, then laughed, and for a brief stretch of time the car felt warm again, human. Then the next mile marker appeared. 17. Daniel slowed, not abruptly, just enough. "That's odd," he said. "Maybe they reuse numbers? County roads are weird." He wanted to accept that, he really did. They passed it. The road curved gently left, then right, then straightened out again. The fog thickened, thinned, then settled into the same uniform gray.
The trees returned, pressing close once more, their branches arching overhead like ribs. Another mile marker surfaced. 17. This time Mara didn't speak. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. Okay, that's not normal. He checked the odometer. It was running, steadily, every mile accounted for. So we're moving, he said, as much to himself as to her. We're just looping. Mara forced a laugh. Great, a haunted cul-de-sac. The humor landed flat, but they held on to it anyway. Humor meant control. Humor meant this was still something that could be explained. The road offered another kindness. Headlights appeared ahead. A car parked on the shoulder, hazards blinking in a slow, tired rhythm. Daniel's heart leapt. Thank God, he breathed. He pulled over behind it. The engine idled. The fog curled around both vehicles, thick enough to taste, damp, metallic, faintly sweet like rotting leaves. Stay here, he told Mara, already opening his door. Cold air rushed in, sharper than he expected. The silence outside felt deeper, heavier, as if sound itself had trouble surviving here. He approached the other car, an SUV, old, its paint dulled by years of neglect. The driver's window was down. "Hey," he called. "You okay?" No answer. He peered inside. The interior was spotless. No personal items, no trash, no signs of struggle. Just a faint indentation in the driver's seat, as if someone had sat there for a long time. Daniel stepped back, unease crawling up his spine. He glanced down at the license plate. It was blank. Not dirty, not damaged. Blank. Mara honked, sharp and urgent. Daniel turned and froze. Their car was gone. Not fading, not hidden. Gone. In its place sat another SUV, identical to the first. Same make, same color, same blinking hazards. Mara stood beside it, door open, her face pale in the flashing amber light. "Daniel," she said, "I didn't move it." Daniel walked back slowly, each step sinking into a growing dread. The ground beneath his boots felt wrong. Not gravel or dirt, but something softer, almost springy like packed moss. Inside the SUV, everything was the same, except for one thing. On the dashboard lay Daniel's phone. He picked it up. The screen lit instantly. No signal, no time, no notifications. Just a single line of text typed in the Notes app in his own handwriting. "You always think it's a wrong turn." Mara read it over his shoulder. Her voice trembled. "Did you write that?" Daniel shook his head, but the certainty he wanted didn't come. The road stretched ahead, patient and endless. Behind them, the fog had thickened again, swallowing the place where they had parked, if they had ever parked at all. "This isn't funny anymore," Mara whispered. The mile marker beside them read 17. The road let them believe it was temporary, at first. Then it took something small, something easy to miss. As Daniel slipped the phone back into his pocket, he realized he could no longer remember what it looked like before they turned onto this road, and that terrified him far more than being lost.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. The road punishes anyone who tries to leave. Daniel tried to leave at dawn. At least, he thought it was dawn. The fog lightened, not enough to reveal the sky, but enough to soften the darkness into a dull gray. The air felt colder, sharper, carrying the smell of damp leaves and old metal. Mara slept fitfully in the passenger seat, her breath shallow, her brow furrowed, as if the road had followed her into her dreams. Daniel watched her for a moment, then looked ahead. The road stretched on, endless, waiting. He tightened his grip on the wheel. "This is stupid.
We're not trapped." He turned the wheel hard to the right. The tires jolted as the car left the asphalt and hit dirt. For one glorious second, Daniel felt relief surge through him, real, electric hope. Then the engine screamed. Not sputtered, screamed. The sound tore through the quiet, high and furious, like metal being peeled apart. The steering wheel jerked violently in his hands. The car lurched, nose dipping as if dragged downward. Mara awoke with a gasp. "Daniel, what are you doing?" "Getting us out," he said through clenched teeth. The engine cut. Silence fell so abruptly it rang in his ears. The headlights flickered once, then died. They sat there, half on the road, half in the dirt, swallowed by fog. Daniel turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Mara hugged herself. It was running fine. "I know." He tried again. Still nothing. He popped the hood and stepped out. The cold bit immediately, sharper now, as if punishing him for daring to leave the car. The ground beneath his boots felt uneven, spongy. He lifted his foot and saw dark impressions fill slowly, like something breathing beneath the soil. The engine looked pristine, no leaks, no loose wires, no obvious damage. It should have worked. Daniel slammed the hood shut and got back in. His fingers shook as he turned the key again. The engine roared to life instantly. Mara stared at him. "You fixed it?" "No," he said. "I didn't touch anything." Relief washed over her face, followed quickly by confusion. "Then why—" Daniel shifted into drive and straightened the wheel. The moment the tires aligned with the road, the car purred, smooth, perfect, as if nothing had happened. They drove forward in silence. The road didn't gloat, it didn't rush them, it simply accepted their obedience. Minutes passed, or hours. Time had begun to feel elastic, stretching and snapping without warning. They saw another car ahead. This one was different. A pickup truck, angled awkwardly across the shoulder, its driver's door hanging open. Daniel slowed cautiously. "Maybe they need help," Mara said, though her voice lacked conviction. They approached on foot this time, staying close to their own car, like children afraid to stray too far from home. The truck's interior was a mess. Scratches lined the dashboard, deep and frantic. The steering wheel bore dark stains that might have been blood or rust. It was hard to tell in the dim light. Mara gagged. "It smells." Daniel noticed it too, a coppery tang mixed with rot, the smell of panic long since abandoned. On the ground near the open door lay a shoe, men's, scuffed and torn as if dragged. No footprints led away. No footprints led toward it either. "Daniel," Mara whispered, "where's the driver?" He didn't answer. Instead, he noticed something else. The road surface beneath the pickup looked wrong. The asphalt bulged slightly, warped, as if softened by heat. Faint impressions marred its surface, shapes that looked unsettlingly like fingers. The pickup's radio crackled suddenly. They both jumped. A voice spilled out, distorted and warping, looping the same phrase again and again. "Almost made it, almost made it, almost made it." Daniel shut it off. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. They backed away. As they returned to their car, Mara said quietly, "What if we'd kept going, off the road?" Daniel swallowed. I think it wouldn't have liked that."
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Memory starts to slip without warning. The first thing Daniel forgot was the song. It came on without warning, low, tinny, leaking from the car's speakers after hours of silence. He stiffened, hand hovering near the radio dial, but the sound didn't dissolve into static this time. It held. A melody, simple and familiar, humming through the cabin like a ghost clearing its throat. Mara smiled despite herself. "I know this one." "So do I," Daniel said. They listened. The tune stirred something warm in his chest, a memory of long drives, open windows, a voice singing off-key beside him. Mara began to hum along. Daniel waited for the words to come. They didn't. The melody circled, teasing, just out of reach. He frowned, concentrating harder, as if memory were a muscle he could strain into obedience. Nothing. Mara stopped humming. "Do you remember the lyrics?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I thought I did." They sat with the discomfort, letting the song play out. When it ended, the radio went silent again, as if embarrassed. Mara laughed weakly. "Guess we're rusty." Daniel didn't answer, because he couldn't remember the last time he'd heard that song before today, or where, or with whom. The road slid beneath them, steady and unchanging. Fog brushed the windows like cold breath. Somewhere outside, something moved, too large to be an animal, too slow to be wind, but Daniel didn't turn his head to look. Instead, he glanced at Mara. Her face looked softer, not younger, just less defined, as if his mind were smoothing out details it no longer considered important. "How long have we known each other?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" "Just how long?" Mara hesitated, her brow furrowed. "A while. Since before the trip?" "That's not what I meant." She opened her mouth, then closed it, tried again. "We met in college, right?" Daniel searched his memory. He could picture a campus, brick buildings, a library with tall windows, but Mara wasn't in the image. "I think so," he said. The lie tasted sour. Hours passed, though outside, the night stayed the same. They ate without appetite, energy bars that felt like sawdust on their tongues. The smell of them lingered too long, cloying and artificial, mixing with the ever-present dampness of the fog. Daniel reached into the glove compartment for napkins and froze. Inside lay a stack of photographs. He didn't remember putting them there. They were loose, edges worn soft with age, Polaroids mostly, some color, some faded nearly to gray. Mara leaned over. "What are those?" "I don't know." He picked one up. It showed the two of them standing beside the car, smiling. The road behind them was visible, but it looked normal, sunlit, surrounded by green fields, a place that felt impossibly distant. Mara took another photo. Her smile faltered. "That's us." "Yes, but I don't remember this." Daniel flipped through the stack. More images, campsites, diners, motel rooms, versions of their lives that felt curated, intentional, proof of a history neither of them could fully access. In one photo, Mara wore a jacket Daniel didn't recognize. In another, Daniel had a scar on his cheek. He touched his face instinctively. Smooth. "What you don't remember, you can't fight for," Mara murmured. Daniel looked at her sharply. "You've said that before." She stared at the photo in her hands. "I know." They put the pictures away, but the feeling remained that they were being watched, not by eyes, by something more intimate, by the road itself. The forgetting accelerated. Daniel tried to recall his parents' names. His mother came easily. His father's name hovered on the edge of thought, stubborn and elusive. He gave up after a few seconds, heart racing. Mara struggled to remember the date, the year, the reason for the trip. "Vacation," she said finally, unconvincing. "From what?" She shrugged. "Work? What kind?" Silence. The road dipped gently, then rose again. A familiar curve approached, one Daniel was certain they'd already passed. On the shoulder stood the dead oak tree, split down the middle, waiting. Mara's breath hitched. "We're looping again." "No," Daniel said automatically. "We never left." The words felt wrong the moment he said them. They passed the tree. This time, something was nailed to its trunk. A sign, hand-painted, letters uneven as if written by someone whose hands shook too badly to hold the brush steady. "Remember why you're running." Daniel slammed the brakes. The car screeched and stopped inches from the tree. Fog curled around the trunk, thick and suffocating. Mara stared at the sign. "Did we see that before?" Daniel shook his head. "No." But even as he said it, doubt crept in. He stepped out of the car. The air was colder here, sharper. It smelled faintly of iron and wet bark. He approached the tree slowly, every instinct screaming at him to stay inside, but something deeper urged him forward. The bark was rough beneath his fingers, freshly cut around the nail. The sign was new, or newly remembered. He turned it over. On the back, written in the same uneven hand, was a single sentence. "You came here to forget." Daniel stumbled back. The words struck something loose inside him, a flicker of memory, an argument, a choice made too quickly, a door closing. Then it was gone. Mara called his name, but it sounded distant, warped like a recording played at the wrong speed. Daniel returned to the car. They drove on without speaking. As the road swallowed the tree behind them, Daniel felt something settle into place. A terrible understanding. The road wasn't stealing memories at random. It was taking the ones that mattered most. Because what you don't remember, you can't fight for. And Daniel was no longer sure what, if anything, he was supposed to be fighting to get back to.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. The road feeds on who you used to be. The road changed when Daniel stopped trying to remember. It narrowed first, subtle enough to doubt. The shoulders thinned to dirt, then vanished altogether, replaced by a slick, dark edge that swallowed the fog like ink in water. The asphalt darkened too, losing its cracks and stains, smoothing into a seamless black ribbon that reflected the headlights like wet skin. "It's getting tighter," Mara said. Daniel nodded. The wheel felt closer to his chest. The car felt smaller. The air inside grew warmer, heavier, tinged with a faint, sour sweetness that made his throat itch. The road was listening. Every time a memory slipped, every time Daniel reached for something and found nothing, the world adjusted. Trees leaned closer, the fog pressed in harder, the sense of distance collapsed, turning the drive into a long, claustrophobic crawl. They drove past a place that looked like a rest stop. At least it tried to. A single light buzzed overhead, illuminating a concrete pad and a vending machine tipped on its side. The machine's glass was shattered, its coils empty, but the hum of electricity still pulsed through it, steady and alive. "Should we stop?" Mara asked. Daniel hesitated. He searched himself for a reason, any reason to say no. None came. They pulled in. The air outside was thick and stale, like an abandoned basement sealed for years. The concrete felt warm underfoot, too warm. Daniel noticed faint impressions in it, footprints overlapping, smeared and distorted, all pointing back towards the road. Mara rubbed her arms. "I feel like we've been here before." Daniel tried to picture it. He couldn't. The light flickered. And suddenly, without warning, the world lurched. Daniel was no longer standing beside the car. He was younger, standing in a narrow hallway painted a sickly yellow. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. A door at the end stood ajar, light spilling through the crack. He knew this place. His chest tightened. A voice, his mother's, called his name, strained and brittle. He took a step forward, then another. The hallway ended abruptly at the cracked door, and beyond it. Daniel gasped and staggered back. He was at the rest stop again, heart pounding, sweat cooling on his skin. Mara grabbed his arm. "Daniel, what happened?" "I don't know." He pressed a hand to his chest. The memory already felt distant, fraying at the edges. "I thought I remembered something, but it's gone." Mara swallowed. "That keeps happening to me, too." She turned away, staring at the vending machine. "I keep seeing things, not good things." The light buzzed louder, its pitch rising until it set Daniel's teeth on edge. They left. The road welcomed them back with a subtle curve inward, hugging the car more closely now. The fog thinned enough to reveal shapes along the edges, structures that might have been houses once, or memories. It was hard to tell. Windows stared out blindly, doors sagged open, revealing darkness that felt thick enough to touch. "Did people live here?" Daniel asked. Maybe. But even as he said it, he knew that wasn't the right question. The road wasn't showing them places, it was showing them pieces. Flashbacks came more frequently now, jagged and uninvited. Daniel saw a kitchen table covered in unopened mail, heard raised voices, his own among them, felt the weight of a decision pressing down, urgent and irreversible. Then it was gone, replaced by the steady hum of tires and the narrowing road. Mara clutched her head suddenly. "I can't remember my sister's face." Daniel's heart dropped. "You have a sister?" She nodded, tears welling. "I know I do. I know I love her. But when I try to picture her, it's like staring into fog." The road responded. The trees closed in, branches scraping the car with a dry, whispering sound. The fog thickened again, swirling with purpose. Daniel felt it then, an indisputable sensation of pressure, not physical, but intimate, like fingers probing at the softest parts of his mind. The road was feeding. It wasn't content with scraps anymore. It wanted substance. They passed another car. This one was newer, clean, its windows intact. Inside sat a man, hands gripping the wheel, eyes open and glassy. His face was slack, peaceful in a way that made Daniel's stomach churn. "What's wrong with him?" Mara whispered. Daniel slowed. As they drew closer, he saw the man's reflection in the windshield. It didn't match. The face staring back was younger, smiling, unscarred. Daniel floored the accelerator. They didn't look back. The road curved sharply, forcing their attention forward. It narrowed further, squeezing them into a single, unbroken lane. The fog above seemed to lower, pressing down like a ceiling. Mara's voice trembled. "It's taking the good things." Daniel nodded slowly. "It takes what hurts, too, but it keeps the pain longer. Because pain was easier to work with. Pain left grooves. The road ate what you loved most about yourself." They drove on, each mile stripping something else away, confidence, certainty, warmth. Daniel felt himself growing lighter, hollower, as if the road were carving him down to a simpler shape, easier to carry, easier to keep. Ahead, the fog parted just enough to reveal a familiar curve. The dead oak tree. Again. But this time, something hung from its branches, dozens of small objects swaying gently. Photographs, clothes, keys. Mara made a sound like a sob. Daniel didn't stop. He couldn't, because as the road narrowed one last time, pressing them into its center, a terrible truth settled in his chest. The road wasn't just feeding on who they used to be. It was shaping who they were allowed to become.
and whatever waited at the end wouldn't need to take much more, because soon there wouldn't be much left to give.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Some travelers become part of the road. They began to notice the cars first. Not all at once, not in a way that felt alarming, just gradually. A sedan, half buried in fog, parked too neatly on the shoulder. A minivan idling with its headlights on, engine purring softly, despite no one inside. A motorcycle lying on its side, chrome gleaming as if it had just been placed there moments ago. Daniel stopped counting after the seventh one. Each vehicle carried the same wrongness. Doors closed, windows intact, no signs of struggle, no bodies, and yet none of them felt empty. As they passed one rusted station wagon, Daniel felt a pressure in his chest, sudden and sharp, like he was intruding on something private. The car's windows were fogged from the inside, opaque with condensation, though no breath touched the glass. Mara noticed it too. "Does it feel like—" She hesitated, searching for the right word. "Like someone's watching us?" Daniel nodded. From inside them. The road didn't react. It didn't need to. It already had their attention. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed the same. The fog thinned in places, revealing long stretches of asphalt, marred by dark stains, not spills, not shadows, impressions. Handprints pressed flat onto the road's surface, fingers splayed as if someone had tried to push themselves free. Footprints that began crisp and human, then elongated, smeared, stretched until they dissolved into nothing. Not everyone leaves footprints. Some leave impressions. Daniel slowed near a compact car, angled awkwardly across the shoulder. Its hazard lights blinked weakly, amber pulses reflected endlessly in the fog. As they passed, Mara flinched. "Did you hear that?" "What?" "Someone said my name." Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. "From where?" She swallowed. "The back seat." The air in the car felt suddenly colder. Daniel checked the rearview mirror. For a split second, just long enough for doubt to set in, he thought he saw a shape back there, a darker silhouette against the darkness, slumped, waiting. Then the mirror showed only fog. They drove on without speaking. The voices came next. At first they were indistinct, murmurs bleeding through the hum of the tires, words that almost made sense, spoken too softly to grasp. Then they grew clearer. "Help me. I'm still here. I didn't mean to stop." The voices never came from ahead. They drifted from behind, from beside them, from places that should have been empty. Mara pressed her hands over her ears. "Make it stop." Daniel wanted to reassure her, wanted to say it was exhaustion, stress, the mind filling silence with noise. But the road had already taught him better. They passed a familiar curve. The dead oak tree stood there, unchanged. Beneath it sat a man. Daniel hit the brakes instinctively. The man was seated cross-legged on the asphalt, head bowed, hands resting calmly on his knees. His clothes were torn and filthy, but his posture was serene, almost peaceful. Mara gasped, "He's alive!" Daniel rolled down the window. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet leaves and something else, old sweat, stale fear. "Hey," Daniel called, "are you okay?" The man lifted his head slowly. His face was blurred, not out of focus, smoothed, as if someone had taken an eraser to the details, eyes, nose, mouth, reduced to vague impressions. He smiled. "I don't need the road anymore," he said. His voice came from everywhere at once. Mara screamed. Daniel slammed the accelerator. The car surged forward. The man remained seated as they passed him. Then, impossibly, he was gone. The tree stood alone again. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Eventually, Mara whispered, "What did he mean?" Daniel swallowed. "I think he stopped wanting to leave." The realization settled heavy between them. The road didn't just trap people, it absorbed them. They began to see shadows next, at the edges of the headlights, along the tree line, shapes that moved when they weren't being watched and froze the moment attention fell on them. Once, Daniel was sure he saw a shadow detach itself from the underside of a parked car and stretch across the road, thin and reaching, before snapping back into place. Mara laughed suddenly, a sharp, broken sound. "Dark humor. At least we won't die alone." Daniel didn't laugh. They passed another abandoned car. Inside it, the radio was playing softly. The same song from before. This time, the lyrics were clear. Daniel recognized the voice singing them. It was his. Daniel drove faster. The road narrowed again, compressing space, pressing them into its center. The air felt heavier now, as if thickened with presence. The air tasted stale, like a room that hadn't been opened in years. Mara stared ahead, eyes unfocused. "Do you think, when we forget enough, we'll stay?" Daniel didn't answer, because part of him already knew the truth. The road wasn't just a place people got lost, it was a place people became. Not everyone leaves footprints. Some leave impressions. And as another empty car appeared ahead, engine running, seat still warm, Daniel wondered how long it would be before the road decided they'd left enough behind to belong to it completely. Behind them, a voice whispered his name. This time, it sounded almost like his own.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. Time breaks long before reality does. Daniel woke to sunlight. Real sunlight. It poured through the windshield in a pale gold wash, warm enough to sting his eyes. For a breathless moment, hope surged, sharp and almost painful. Morning. Normal morning. The fog was gone. The trees had pulled back. The road looked like a road again, cracked, sun-bleached, lined with weeds that swayed gently in a breeze he could actually feel. Mara stirred beside him. "Did we make it?" Daniel laughed, a breathless sound that bordered on hysteria. "I think we did." They sat there for several seconds, afraid to move, as if motion might shatter the illusion. The air smelled clean, dust and pine instead of damp rot. Birds chirped somewhere nearby. Daniel checked the clock. It read 12. He frowned and tapped it. The numbers didn't change. Mara noticed. "Maybe it's broken." "Maybe," he said. They stepped out of the car. The warmth felt real, solid. Daniel stretched, joints aching with a fatigue that felt earned, human. Hunger followed quickly, sharp enough to make his stomach cramp. "I'm starving," Mara said. "Me too." They shared the last of the energy bars, laughing quietly at how ravenous they felt after barely eating the day before. The laughter faded when Daniel realized something. He couldn't remember eating the day before, or the day before that. "How long do you think we've been here?" he asked. Mara shrugged. "A couple days? 3?" Daniel searched his body for clues. His beard was longer, not by days, by weeks. He touched his face slowly. "I don't think so." The sunlight flickered, just once. Then it was gone. The fog rushed back in like a held breath released. The warmth vanished. Cold settled into Daniel's bones with cruel speed. The birds fell silent. Night reclaimed the road. Mara gasped, "No, no, no, no!" The world snapped back into its familiar wrongness as if nothing had happened. Daniel checked the clock again. 12. Always. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed the same. Hunger returned in waves, unpredictable and brutal. Sometimes Daniel felt dizzy with it, hands shaking, vision narrowing, only for it to vanish minutes later, replaced by a nauseating fullness. Sleep became impossible to track. Daniel dozed for what felt like seconds and woke exhausted. Other times, he stared at the road for what felt like hours without blinking, his mind eerily clear, his body refusing rest. Mara fared worse. She snapped at him over nothing, forgot mid-sentence what she'd been saying. Once, she accused him of hiding food. "You ate it already," Daniel said, bewildered. "No, I didn't," she insisted, eyes wild. "I watched you." They fell into silence after that, the space between them thick with suspicion. Later, much later, though the clock insisted otherwise, Mara asked, "Who was driving when we got here?" Daniel hesitated. "Me." She shook her head slowly. "I thought it was me." The road curved gently, familiar now in a way that made Daniel's stomach churn. "How many people were with us?" Mara asked suddenly. Daniel frowned. "2." Her eyes flicked toward the back seat. "Right, just us." But her voice lacked certainty. They passed an abandoned bus. It was parked crookedly across the shoulder, its doors hanging open. Inside, rows of seats stretched into darkness. Daniel thought he saw shapes slumped there, passengers frozen mid-journey. But when he looked again, the bus was empty. Mara stared at it, transfixed. "I hate that one." "Why?" She pressed her lips together. "I don't know. It feels crowded." Time shed again. Daniel realized he was crying when his tears hit the steering wheel. He didn't know why. The emotion arrived without context, raw grief, heavy and suffocating. Images flickered at the edges of his mind. An hospital room, a ringing phone, a choice he hadn't been ready to make. Then it faded, leaving only exhaustion. "What's wrong?" Mara asked softly. "I don't know." And he meant it. They argued later, loudly, over directions, over nothing, over everything. "You don't listen anymore," Mara snapped. "You don't make sense," Daniel shot back. They both fell silent at that, because neither of them could remember when the other had last made sense. The dead oak tree appeared again. Daniel swore under his breath. That's impossible. This time, something new was carved into its trunk. Deep grooves gouged violently into the wood. How long has it been? Mara stared at it. "I don't want to know." Daniel did. But the answer wouldn't come. They drove on. The road pulsed faintly beneath them now, a slow, almost imperceptible rhythm. The fog moved in lazy spirals, no longer hiding itself. It didn't need to. Daniel felt untethered. Moments bled into one another, indistinct and interchangeable. He couldn't tell if he was growing weaker or stronger, older or younger. The concept felt irrelevant. Time didn't pass here. It shed, sloughed off pieces of itself, leaving them adrift in the remains. Mara leaned her head against the window. If we ever get out, how will we know how long we were gone? Daniel didn't answer, because a darker thought had taken root. What if we already had gotten out, once, and this was what came after? The road stretched on, unchanged, eternal, and somewhere behind them, time lay discarded in pieces, like a skin the road had already finished wearing.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. The road wants you to forget you're human. The change didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly, disguising itself as relief. Daniel noticed it the first time he stopped caring. A shape moved at the edge of the headlights, low to the ground, wrong in the way it dragged itself forward. In the beginning, he would have slowed, watched, felt the reflexive pull of curiosity, of concern. This time, he didn't. He adjusted the wheel just enough to miss it and kept driving. Mara didn't comment. That frightened him more than the thing itself. Hours passed, though outside the night stayed the same. Conversation dwindled to fragments, single words, gestures, sometimes nothing at all. Silence no longer felt heavy, it felt efficient, necessary. When hunger returned, it did so with a sharpness that bordered on pain. Daniel pulled over beside an abandoned sedan without discussion. The decision didn't feel like a choice. Inside the trunk, they found supplies, canned food, bottled water, a blanket folded with care. Mara opened one of the cans with shaking hands, then paused. What if this belongs to someone? Daniel took it from her and ate. The food tasted bland, metallic, but it filled the hollow space inside him quickly, comfortingly. Mara watched for a moment, then joined him. They didn't talk about the owner of the car. They didn't wonder where they'd gone. The road didn't punish them for this. It rewarded them. The fog thinned slightly, the asphalt smoothed beneath the tires, the sense of pressure in Daniel's chest eased. The less you remember, the lighter you feel. They encountered another traveler near the dead oak tree, a woman this time. She stood in the road, blocking their path, arms outstretched. Her hair hung in damp ropes around her face. Her clothes were torn, her skin mottled with bruises that bloomed dark and angry. "Please," she croaked, "don't leave me here." Daniel slowed. Mara reached for the door handle. Something deep inside Daniel recoiled, not in fear, but irritation. The woman's presence felt disruptive, inefficient. "She's slowing us down," he said. Mara looked sharply at him. "Daniel." The woman took a step closer. Her eyes were wild, too bright. "I remember you," she said suddenly. "You were here before." Daniel's head throbbed. "No," he said. "Yes," she insisted. "You left me. You said you'd come back." Mara stared at Daniel, horror dawning. "Is that true?" He searched his mind. There was nothing. The woman reached for Mara. Daniel reacted without thinking. He drove forward. The impact was dull, heavy. The car lurched, then steadied. They didn't look back. Mara screamed at Daniel, words tumbling over each other, sharp and frantic. Daniel listened, distantly aware of the sound but disconnected from its meaning. Eventually, she fell silent. The road straightened. The fog parted. Daniel felt lighter. The less you remember, the lighter you feel. They stopped speaking altogether after that. Language began to feel unnecessary, clumsy, too slow for the way the road wanted them to move. Daniel communicated with glances, with pressure on the accelerator, with the angle of the wheel. Mara followed. She moved differently now, more cautiously, more alert. Her eyes tracked motion in the fog instinctively. She slept less, ate quickly, efficiently. Once Daniel caught her staring at him with something like calculation. Not love, not fear, assessment. They passed a stretch of road littered with debris, shoes, bags, phones cracked and dead. Daniel felt a flicker of recognition at one of the phones, then deliberately looked away. The feeling faded. Good. They no longer stopped for abandoned cars unless they needed something. They no longer slowed for voices. They no longer flinched at shadows. Violence became simpler, a tool, a means of maintaining forward motion. The road narrowed further, compressing them into its center. The fog no longer hid its shapes. Faces appeared within it, frozen expressions etched into the mist, mouths open in silent pleas. Daniel didn't see people anymore. He saw obstacles. Mara began humming occasionally, a tuneless sound, low and rhythmic. Daniel didn't ask why. He didn't ask anything. One night, or what passed for night, the road opened briefly into a wide clearing. Grass replaced asphalt. The car rolled to a stop without instruction. Daniel stepped out. The air here smelled different, clean, sharp. For a moment, something stirred inside him, a memory, a word. He looked at his hands. They were dirty, scratched, stronger than he remembered. Mara joined him, eyes scanning the dark. "What are we?" she asked. Daniel opened his mouth to answer. Nothing came out. The word human hovered just beyond reach, heavy, inconvenient. He let it go. The road pulsed beneath their feet, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. The less you remember, the lighter you feel. Behind them, the clearing closed, sealing itself away. Ahead, the road waited, patient, hungry, and almost finished. Daniel returned to the car without looking back. Mara followed. Whatever they had been before no longer mattered, and the road knew it.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. One person almost escapes and learns the truth. Mara remembered her name first. It came to her without warning, sharp and intrusive, like a shard of glass lodged in her mind. Mara. The sound of it echoed inside her skull, heavier than it should have been, important, anchoring. She stumbled as she walked, fingers digging into the fabric of her jacket, as if she might lose the word if she didn't hold on to it hard enough. Daniel noticed immediately. "You stopped," he said. His voice sounded distant now, flat, stripped of urgency. Mara looked at him, really looked. His face was thinner, harder. His eyes reflected the road more than the person standing in front of him. "I remember my name," she said. Daniel frowned as if she'd spoken a foreign language. Why does that matter? The question chilled her. Because it used to matter. The road around them shifted. The fog thinned, peeling back to reveal something impossible ahead. A familiar green highway sign, battered but intact, standing at the edge of the asphalt. Exit 12, Westbrook 5 miles. Mara's breath caught. Her heart pounded so loudly she felt it in her teeth. An exit. A real one. Daniel stared at it, confusion flickering across his face. Something like pain followed. That wasn't there before. Mara stepped toward it. With each step, memories surged back, not gently, but violently. A funeral, rain soaking into black fabric, a choice she'd made instead of grieving, running because staying hurt too much. The road trembled beneath her feet. "I know what this is. I know why we're here." Daniel grabbed her arm. His grip was tight, desperate in a way she hadn't seen in a long time. "Don't!" "Daniel," she said softly, "this road isn't lost. It's hiding." The exit sign flickered. The fog writhed, angry now. Mara pulled free and ran. The world warped as she moved. The road stretched and narrowed, fighting her progress. Shadows lunged from the fog, brushing her skin with cold fingers that whispered her failures, her regrets, her grief. She didn't stop. With every step, more returned. Her sister's face, the sound of her own sobbing in an empty apartment, the truth she'd been trying not to feel. Pain flooded in, raw and unbearable, but she welcomed it. The exit loomed closer. Behind her, Daniel screamed her name, not flat this time, human. She reached the edge of the road. The moment her foot touched the dirt beyond the asphalt, the world cracked. Mara saw it then, not with her eyes, but with a terrible clarity. The road wasn't a place, it was a process. It appeared wherever people tried to outrun what they couldn't face, wherever guilt went unspoken, wherever guilt was buried instead of confronted. It didn't trap you, it finished you. Mara turned. Daniel stood frozen on the asphalt, the road pulsing beneath his feet like a living thing. He looked smaller somehow, emptier. "You don't have to stay, but you can't leave like this." He shook his head slowly. "It doesn't hurt here." "That's the point," she said. Tears streamed down her face. "It takes the pain so it can take everything else." The road surged. Cracks split the asphalt between them, glowing faintly from within. The fog roared, a sound like breath drawn deep and held. Daniel took a step toward her, then another. His foot crossed the line. The pain hit him all at once. He screamed. Mara reached for him, but the road pulled back, yanking him down. Asphalt softened, rose, wrapped around his legs like tar. He met her eyes one last time. For a moment she saw him, really saw him. Then he was gone. The road sealed itself. Silence fell. Mara stood alone at the edge of the exit, shaking, broken, alive. Behind her the sign rusted rapidly, letters flaking away until it read nothing at all. Ahead the trees parted, revealing a real road. Morning light filtered through the branches. Mara stepped forward. The world didn't resist. As she walked away, she understood the final truth. The road doesn't trap you, it finishes you. And the ones who leave, they carry the knowledge of it forever, like a scar that aches whenever they try to forget again.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. The Road Never Lets You Leave the Same. Mara walked for a long time before she realized the silence was different. Not empty, finished. The fog thinned with every step until it no longer clung to her skin. The air smelled like morning, wet grass, distant rain, something alive and growing. Her shoes struck gravel instead of asphalt. When she looked back, the trees stood close together, ordinary and indifferent. There was no road behind her, just forest. She waited for panic. It didn't come. Instead, grief arrived, full-bodied and crushing. It bent her double, stole the strength from her legs, forced her to her knees in the dirt. She cried then, not the quiet leaking tears of the road, but deep shaking sobs that hurt her throat and chest. Daniel's face rose unbidden in her mind, not the hollow version at the end, the real one. The road had given that back to her as payment. She stayed there until the sun climbed higher, until the ache dulled into something survivable. Only then did she stand and follow the sound of traffic in the distance. Civilization greeted her cautiously. A gas station, a diner, people who looked at her torn clothes and hollow eyes with polite concern. Someone called the police. Someone else offered her coffee. She answered questions. Her name came easily now. Her past returned in fragments, enough to function, not enough to feel whole. When they asked where she'd been, she opened her mouth and stopped. There were no words for the road. They told her she'd been missing for 3 months. Mara nodded. She didn't argue. Life resumed around her in ways that felt almost obscene. Bills arrived, phones rang. Her sister hugged her too tightly, crying into her shoulder. At night, Mara lay awake listening to the hum of distant highways. The dreams came anyway. She dreamed of asphalt breathing beneath her feet, of cars that watched her pass, of shadows that leaned too close and waited for her to slow down. She remembered the truth the road had shown her. Escape was possible, but only after surrender. You didn't leave by fighting. You left by accepting what you were running from and letting it hurt. That was the price. Mara tried to live carefully after that. She faced things she would have avoided before, spoke truths she'd buried, let herself feel grief instead of numbing it. But the road had changed her in quieter ways, too. She noticed it when she drove. How easy it was to miss a turn when she was tired, how familiar certain empty stretches felt, how comforting the idea of just not deciding anything anymore could be. Once, late at night, she took a wrong exit. The fog rolled in almost immediately. Her heart raced. She pulled over, breathing hard, gripping the wheel until the feeling passed. When she drove again, the fog receded obediently. But she knew the road hadn't vanished. It had learned her shape. Months later, Mara saw something online. A missing persons report. A couple vanished on a rural highway after a wrong turn. No evidence, no explanation. The comments were full of speculation. Bad GPS, drugs, wild animals. Mara closed the page, hands shaking. She began to notice patterns after that. Certain roads, certain towns, certain kinds of people. Those running from something, those who joked too easily about being lost, those who said things like, "I just need to get away." She tried to warn them once, a coworker, stressed and hollow-eyed, laughing about taking a drive with no destination. Mara grabbed his arm too hard, words spilling out in a rush that made no sense even to her. He pulled away, unsettled. A week later, he didn't show up for work. The road didn't need permission. It didn't need belief. It just needed motion. One night, Mara dreamed she was standing at the edge of the asphalt again. Daniel stood beside her, not empty, not finished, just tired. "You left," he said. "I faced it," she replied. He nodded. "Then don't forget." She woke with tears on her face and the distant sound of tires on pavement drifting through her open window. Mara understood then. The road wasn't contained. It never had been. It didn't end at an exit sign or dissolve in daylight. It lived in choices, in avoidance, in every moment someone decided not to look back. The road didn't end. It spread. And somewhere, even now, someone was taking a wrong turn, laughing, rationalizing, believing it was temporary. The road would let them believe that at first.
The road was never about distance. It was about removal. It took their names, their pasts, their reasons for wanting to go home. Because once you forget who you are, you stop asking where you're going. And that's how the road wins. So if you're listening to this late at night, if you feel like you're stuck, running, or trying to outrun something behind you, remember this. The most dangerous roads aren't the ones that lead nowhere. They're the ones that promise escape. And if this story stayed with you, if it followed you longer than it should, don't turn away. Subscribe, because the next road is already waiting.